Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Art and Talk is an online interviewing platform for artists to share their art, creativity, and passion. We're so grateful that you're watching today. Today, we're going to be continuing with the series presenting a collection of artists that are currently on exhibit at the Cultural Council of Palm Beach County in South Florida. The exhibit name is Karibu, and Karibu is a Swahili word that means welcome, come in. And we're going to be discussing and welcoming a fiber artist and discussing and looking at some of her work. Again, thank you so much for watching. We hope you'll stay connected with us on social media, on Art and Talk's Facebook page, and also on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate your support. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk, and I'd like to welcome our fiber artist, Gillian Kennedy Wright. Gillian, welcome.
Thank you so much, Leslie Sue.
Awesome to have you here, and you're all cozy there in your studio.
I know it's kind of wild in my studio, but I figured you need to see it how it really is.
Yes, absolutely. That's your creative space. Yeah, so thank you for letting us kind of get a little insider look into it.
You're most welcome. So
Yes.
how do I start?
Well, Jillian, can you just speak a little bit about the Karibu exhibit and how you got involved in it, and maybe just a little bit of a brief kind of like history on it, and then we'll kind of move into your art and whatever you'd like to share.
So this exhibition is what we called a historical moment. It's the first Black show or art exhibition hosted by the Cultural Council featuring only Black artists. And it's specifically for Palm Beach County. So Trina Burks and Anthony Burks curated the show. And they pretty much looked around for, any up and coming, whatever, you had a typical call to artists to enter the show. But Karibu comes out of, I want to say, a response to what was happening with the Black Lives Matter, which has in some way a kind of bad connotation, in other words, with violence or whatever. But Karibu is welcome. It's about being in the community, forming a cohesive community, and we're introducing our work to everybody yet again in that forum. That's my take on it. Karibu has fashion, photography, kinetic art, photography, painting, you name it, installations of all sorts. It's just an amazing, amazing show to see. Mm-hmm. Now, to get into my part of it was, Anthony said to me, Gillian, I want to do something different. I want to create, he never said what he wanted, but I wanted to create something that flew like kites from the ceiling. Never said faces, never said patterns, because he's very familiar with my work. So I ran with it. So my pieces are about women. The installation is about, it's called Journey to Sunday Dinner. And in doing that, he thought about the concept of big mama, big, woman, not as in size, but as in big thoughts, powerful women, giving their families a sense of direction. So in the Black community, it is traditional that you go to church on Sunday. Or if you happen to go on Saturday, fine, but we're choosing Sunday dinner. You go to church, and then you meet at one person's home, one woman's home, whether it's your mother, your grandma, your aunt, whatever, and the whole family comes together for a meal. The meal is either cooked by one person or everybody pitches in, but it's about when the family, as well as the community, is welcome. But when the family comes together, no arguments, no this, no that, we're sitting down as a cohesive community to share in the food and to share in conversations, figure out problems, pass on traditions that have been going on for years, and passing it on to the younger generation. So that's where the women come from in my piece. Mm-hmm. the background also to the show for me is, as a fiber artist, we wear clothes, we wear Sunday hats, and in my tradition, I'm Jamaican born, Canadian, and American. So I come from a wide cross section of nationalities. So you dress up in your Sunday hat, your Sunday best, and you're showing it off at church. And you come home, you take off everything. But it's the concept of fiber, the fiber, that cotton ad about the fiber of our lives and
Mm-hmm.
how we interweave. That's where I'm going with that.
Mm-hmm.
So for my personal journey towards the show was, I like to sketch. So this is show and tell today. I always have a notebook in my bag. It's about, let's say, 3.5 by 5 inches. And I doodle a lot. I don't know if you can see it. So I'm always sketching.
Mm-hmm.
I travel a lot and I'm always sketching with my pencil. For me, when I was charged to do this, and there are actually 17 pieces in the show, which was major for me. But what I do is I started doodling. Anthony's specifics was it has to be 36 by 36 and 48 by 48, which for me is kind of huge, but that's what I worked with. So that's how I started with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have to mention, while I was there during the preview, and so grateful to be there and had the opportunity to speak with you and some of the other artists, it was amazing use of space. I thought that was really quite brilliant to use the ceiling as well with your pieces.
Yes.
And as you enter the exhibition space, they kind of follow you, and it wraps all the way around to when you come to the completion of the exhibit in the last room.
They did an amazing job of putting it all together with the flow. It's the journey. Think about the journey. It's almost like a rainbow of women heading towards, and I forgot to say, there's actually functional art pieces there. So in the back of the room, there's this table, a circular table, 2 benches, and I'll get into that after.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so the fiber art, almost as you were speaking, Gillian, and you had mentioned the threads. I'm thinking the threads that make up the particular garment or the particular art piece, and how that kind of ties in with the big mama theme or the female theme. It really kind of ties it all together, and then we get this beautiful feeling of a Sunday dinner and sort of like the matriarchy kind of leading the way to pass on the traditions, the faith, nurturing, supportive of life. You're having a meal, and then there's certain parameters, as you said, like there's no arguments. It's sort of an uplifting discussion and just coming together, a whole communal feeling, as you said.
That's correct. And it's the generational feel too, because maybe a great grandmother would still be alive, a grandmother, a mother, a daughter, and they're little kids. So it's that intergenerational exchange of knowledge is so important to a community.
Mm-hmm.
So for how did I think I want to, can I segue into how I began my art journey?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Okay, so I started, and it's important, I started as a child, young. My parents were teachers, and every summer I had the amazing ability to have bits of colored chalk, and I would make these huge murals on our back wall of our home. But mommy and daddy had a deal. At the end of the day, you have to clean off the wall. And I would bawl my eyes out. I don't want to change it. I don't want to wash it off. We had to wash it off. Next day, I'd start a new mural all summer. I guess in hindsight, my parents were giving me the ability to create something new every day, not to be afraid to erase something, but to build something better than the day before. And, in a child's eye, you didn't see it, but as an adult, I appreciate the fact that my parents did encourage me to do that. and to come up with colors. And it was just amazing. So I started there. And then I moved on to art school. And I had many choices, but I chose to go to art school and I had a blast. I majored in graphics, minored in an informal minor in textiles or fiber. And having worked in the advertising agency and all of that, it's very clear cut and very restrictive. I worked with huge advertising agencies, but my fiber art, my love of fiber came out, and I meld both things together. So if you look at my work, you will see that it has a very graphic quality. It's not the typical, if you look behind me, you can see the clear cut lines. It's a face. I know how to draw a perfect portrait, but I no longer want to do that. I want to do something different. It's about color. It's about pattern. It's about assembling vintage materials. And that, what I call minimalism from my graphics, comes out with my textiles. So I would like to say that I enjoy minimalism. I enjoy abstract art, as well as I enjoy clean lines and bold colors. I love black and white, but I love the blast of a red and a yellow. Those are vibrant colors, close to the heart. I also think that my creative process is something that morphs into something that you can plan it, but I allow it to morph into something more. So as I said, I start with a little book, I blow it up, and I have a stash of fabric. So I enjoy fabrics from all over the world. So there is Ankara fabric, which comes out of Africa, and there are different kinds. And I'm always hunting for fabric. And when I choose a piece, I then go to my fabric stash, which I dare not show you because it's a wild stash of fabric. But I decide, it's almost as if I'm making the fabric speak to me. Sounds wild, but it does. You know, I decide, what am I putting where? What works? Do I want it to be a raised area? Do I want to cut out stuff? I play around with it. And I decide then, the design speaks to me, I speak to my design, if that makes sense to you. Then I move on to actually cutting it. And I have an industrial machine that I sew most of my pieces with. And I enjoy sewing it with a black outline, if you can see from the back here, zigzag, that's my hallmark. But then I go into detail, and then I hand sew stuff in. And that's when it comes alive to me, because you get the feel of the fabric. It crushes, it's as if I sew a piece of me into the fabric. And I move on to vintage stuff. I collect buttons, beads, brooches, bags. They call it vintage, it could be old clothes. I don't care what it is. I want to take the fiber or whatever it is that's close to somebody else's body and use it and instill it in my work. It makes the piece come alive. I think for women, we tend to have funky earrings on. We have an interesting, say, necklace on to make our personal statement, along with hats, whether the hats are purchased commercially or are they purchased, you make them, because my grandma used to make hats for the fun of it. And as a child, I wore amazing church hats, which incidentally, I did not like at the time. But people would think, oh my gosh, look at Gillian coming to church in this cute little hat that her grandma made. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But in retrospect, it has fueled my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I still portray that in my work.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring together the embellishment of my work with the vintage finds. And the vintage pieces can be from a thrift store, from an antique store, from someone saying to me, Gillian, my grandmother used to have some buttons from whatever, however years ago. Do you think you could use them? And I say, yes. So it's not just my life that I'm sharing with my work, it's other people's things that appear in my work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you might ask me, what drives me? What drives my passion? And I would say it's my creative soul. I so enjoy creating every day. I get up, I'm an early birder. I get up at 4 a.m. and I hit my studio when it's quiet in my house. And I do have a home studio, thank God, because I would not be going to a commercial studio at 4 a.m. At home, I'm here, I have a space dedicated for my studio, and I'm a happy camper.
Mm-hmm.
And I start working on my thing. I plan ahead what I'm doing. Oh, so I'm working on this piece. Cut out my fabric and I sort out my stuff and I move on. That fuels me. I'm also really satisfied with designing, the design process. I somehow never seem to have a design block. It's something that just flows naturally, just like conversation for me. So that's what that's what drives my work. What else do you want to know?
Well, what was interesting, and I think perhaps one of the reasons why you don't get into like a compositional funk or a design funk, so to speak, that you were saying everything flows, is I think that it may be that you said that your part of your process is a combination of allowing the materials that you're using to speak to you, as well as kind of bringing, your thoughts into it. So I don't know, I kind of get the feeling that kind of helps things to flow, because you're kind of like, you're staying open. You're saying this fabric is speaking to me. These buttons are speaking to me. This is speaking to me. And I think that kind of contributes, it's like all these voices kind of like creating, whatever piece you're working on. So I thought that was interesting. I love that you incorporate a collaborative aspect, even though it's you creating it, because it could be someone else's clothes, as you mentioned, it could be someone else's buttons or this or that. And you said that the pieces then come alive. I just found that to be so beautiful and so,
Thank you.
having so much depth and so much meaning.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're ready to look at one of the
Yes.
first pieces. We have a great understanding of your artistic journey and your process. It was very, clearly stated and very interesting. So if it's all right with you, we'll go to your first art piece.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Give me just a moment.
So my first piece is called Journey to Sunday Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So part of being Jamaican is we speak a patois. It's not a French Creole. It's a Jamaican patois. It's a mix of English, Spanish, African, Portuguese, you name it, French, everything. So the title of the work is Come See Me. You would say in English, come see me and live with me are two different things. In patois, I would say, come see me and live with me is two different things. So let's go back to it now. It is the idea that here she is in her Sunday best, her hat, and she is making her personal statement. I have mudcloth in the background. And for people who are not familiar with mudcloth, the whole process of dyeing, mud is like a resist process. And, colors are made simply, just really simple to batik, but it's mud. But for me, mudcloth is the link to from the earth to the person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, it's a creation of a mixture of fabrics, but we're linked to the earth. The next piece is also displayed in the exhibition.
Do you want me to go to the second piece?
Yes,
Okay,
because I'm aiming to get to the end and then it makes a lot of sense.
sure, absolutely. Okay, here we go to the second one.
So when I'm speaking about works, she's called Faith, Prayer, and Talk. And she's a fabric collage. Here's her vintage necklace and beads that I pull apart from, different necklaces to make something of it. And I spoke about the woman, the big mamas, the matriarchs of the family. And here she is in an Ankara kind of fabric kind of hat. It's not a traditional hat, but it's her statement. She couldn't care two hoots. She is heading out. She feels she's well dressed and she has on her thing and she's making her statement. But statements are more than just statements. Statements are, how am I going to help somebody? What can I do to help somebody? Am I helping, Mary's aunt to organize her life, to get a better job? Am I making a powerful statement? Am I a little wallflower? We do it with prayer. It's about her faith. She's praying for herself and her family and her community, and it's about the talk. So just think in your mind the journey to the Sunday dinner table. So that's the whole path. Okay, so the third piece that's in the show is called, and you can switch for me, perfect, is my silent prayer. We often have thoughts or prayers that we speak all the time. You get up and you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? We have a silent prayer, a silent conversation. This piece has in a particular symbol, the X, which is called Fahodi, which is a Adinkra symbol. An Adinkra symbol is an alphabetic system designed by the Akan people in Ghana. It's the letter F, and I call it my series. There's another series that I have with that X, and I call it F is for freedom. So that's why I included it in her earrings and throughout that piece. So freedom of what? Freedom to create your own destiny. The question of freedom to work, freedom to talk, freedom to express yourself. All of these women embody a feel, that kind of feel. So the next thing, the next image is called the Sunday dinner. And it's the Sunday dinner table. So just think about all these women that you saw before, literally heading towards, as you said, from the front of the exhibition down to the back where this table is located. The concept of a circular table, and this is a 36 diameter table, but just think of it as a bigger table. It doesn't matter if it's a round table or it's a rectangle table, but for me, I picked round for its continuity with life and the circle about bringing people together. So the table has the same symbol on it, the X, which is the letter F. And the letter F in Akan refers to it, in the Adinkra symbol refers to what do we gather? How do we are responsible? We move forward together with things. That's where, the whole meaning comes around. What the whole meaning comes alive. So I chose to call the benches Sunday dinner perch, not Sunday dinner, but Sunday dinner. Again, the spin on patois. And it's a bench that can seat 1.5 which sounds kind of weird, but it's one and a half of a person.
Mhm.
So think about having your meal, but at the end of the meal, you're going to take a child and you say, come sit with me. So the child, the mom or the grandmother can sit with the child on the other half or the other quarter of the table. They can embrace, they can, hug, whatever it is. And the kind of warmth and connection can be made from that, what I call a perch, your stool kind of thing. Um, on the table too, I have two chargers. And the chargers again are symbolic. What is your charge in life? What are we here for? Are we here to be angry about something, or are we here to come together as a group of people? And we're talking a mixture of people in the society. What are we here for? Are we going to work to a common goal for the common good? What is your charge in life? Yes, the charger is a charger that you put your plate on. Yes. But what else is there? Are you excelling at your passion, your art, what kind of profession? Do you want to be a carpenter? Everybody doesn't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but be good at what you do. So flowing off the table is the table runner, which is what I call Sunday dinner gathering. And a runner is a decorative piece on a table, but a runner is also about how do we run our lives? How do we learn to run our lives? How do we have a sense of direction with our lives? We have bold colors on it. We have black on it. What is our statement? So the runner in a traditional table, had it been a rectangle table, would have pulled, you would have put the plates that we share, family style around the table. You would rest it in the middle on the runner as a protection to your table. But a runner is also a protective force in your life. What do you fall back on? What do you ground yourself with? So that's the whole link from the woman floating in to this table, the actual journey to Sunday dinner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is so beautiful, and I love how you're explaining everything, and that everything has this contemplative quality, and that you're kind of like provoking, kind of like instigating us to ask these questions about life and our place, the charger, the runner, and just kind of exploring, freedom, different aspects of our life, and kind of like taking us through this whole journey, first with, with the women, with the hats and the different symbolism, and looking at, the different shapes and the materials, and then the kind of, it's almost like a musical piece. And then we have this like final like Sunday dinner gathering, and it's very like asking these questions, as I said, and being reflective, and looking at things from kind of a responsible way, and also in an open and a communal way.
Yes, yes, definitely so. Because we have to ask our questions. You can't just run through life without learning. Life is an awesome journey. We need to open up to what it has to offer us.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to go in the direction you choose. You need to be open to the powers that might say you need to go off on a little journey to discover something else, to get back to where you need to be.
Mhm. And now, Gillian, is it the kind of standard, so to speak, Sunday dinner, asking these questions, and then like the women, the grandmother, the great grandparent, the mother, they're kind of heading this discussion, and then there's discussion about this, and feedback going back and forth, and then, as you said, passing the traditions on to the children. Is that kind of like what's actually going on during the actual conversation at the Sunday dinner?
Yes, it is. And it's usually a very loud conversation. There's music in the background.
Mhm.
Well, it starts with a prayer, so there's no music for that one, right? but maybe people hold hands, and that is holding hands at the table is about truce, in the sense that if you've had any kind of, oh, I don't get along with my sister or my brother or my whatever, holding hands at the table and that prayer is forget all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So then you move on to the meal. Music goes up and it's fun. Pass the corn, pass the rice, pass the whatever. Can I dish that out for you? Let me take care of the young ones, and they learn the tradition. For instance, in my home, I grew up with grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Our grandparents lived in our home. That was the norm. That's what I grew up with. And grandma and my grandpa would eat first. In other words, not first, but mommy and daddy would make sure their plates are dished out first. It's almost like a honoring, age before beauty kind of thing. The older people get served first. Then you move on to mommy would not dish out her thing first. She dished daddy's dinner out, or daddy would say, oh, don't worry about it. Daddy would share for my sister and I. Mommy would do somebody else. That's how it went.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation was, how did your week go? What are you planning for your coming week? Something funny happened. Grandma would say, back in the day, so and so happened. And you'd say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. So it's that kind of melodious conversation that would go on around the table. And this conversation for me happened in Jamaica. It happened when my family moved to Canada. And it also happened here with my parents here, passing it on to my child, that same conversation. And it gives you a sense of calm and peace, knowing your what is in your past and how you can move gracefully forward, because it's about knowledge. And I always say knowledge is power and power is knowledge. If you don't know something, you don't know. But if you know, you can say, oh, so that's how it works. Let me build on that. So that's the conversation around the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love the ritual, and that the protocol is so interesting. So this is something that you pretty much growing up look forward to on Sundays. This is what you would have
Yes,
experienced.
yes, definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And then remember, there's family, as in blood relatives, but then there is an aunt who would pop in, maybe an uncle or a neighbor who maybe has to work. So their child will say, can you keep so and so? And they would sit at the Sunday table, and our traditions would be passed on to someone else's. And it's just that feel of family, community. Everybody becomes a big family, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you don't have anything else that you'd like to refer to in these images, I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share. All right, is
Okay, perfect.
that okay? Okay, great, thank you.
You were so welcome.
Okay, wow, what a very fascinating whole Sunday experience going on, kind of from, you're presenting it from A to Z, and
Mm-hmm.
all the different aspects of it. Um, what else would you like to share about this? And can we go a little bit more, Gillian, into your creative process? I have this strong sense of like your sense of touch must be so acute, because as you were explaining things in the beginning, like the way the fabric feels, like you just totally, like you're just melting into it and you just so resonate with it. I find that to be so beautiful.
It is. And so I'm going to share how real things are. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is an orchid.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to love flowers. And I'm a gardener too. And I'm always looking. So the typical person would look on this and think, oh, it's dead. No, for me, it's an extension of life. So the creative process for me is that I'm always looking. I'm always thinking, so can I do a design with a hat with this kind of orchid shape on it? Can I pick up the colors? How is it reflective of the sun? It's happy. Oh, and I forgot to say, my art is happy art. I tend to be a very positive person. I don't dwell on sad things. My faces don't normally have eyes. You might see a spot for an eye, or, like a line for an eye, but there is no real, you're not going to see the pupils and all of that. That's not it. But I want you, when you do your work, I want you to, when you look at my work, I want you to look at it and think, suppose I was in this, what do I feel? So for the tactile things, I'm always collecting. I like a brooch,
Mhm.
and I would think, so does it work on this piece here? Does it work as her earring? Does it work in her hair? And it's about making the work come alive. It's about picking a piece of something, a piece of old jewelry that has funky colors, say, but should I pull it apart and use the yellow bead with the red, or should I mix it with another piece? Does it work with this? How does it work? The creative process, as I said, is a very fluid process.
Mhm.
It's about, I don't think, pardon me, I don't say something is wrong. I'd say, it's not working so how I want it. And at that point, time is awesome. I will lay out something on my table, and for me, I use a butcher table. Yeah, no, a chef's table. You know those metal tables? I work on two of those. So they're 4x4.
Okay.
And I'm working on a piece, and I put it down and I live with it. As I said, I stash the fabrics together. Maybe not. Yes, maybe no. I put, does this work with it? Does a bead work with it? Where am I going with it? Then I go back to my original drawing and I sit and I like to think about it. So I've laid out everything. Is this where I want to go with it? So I cut out my piece. They are fabric collages. So they are actually adhered fabric to fabric. My background fabric, it's usually linen or canvas because I like the tactile feel of it.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid of a piece of fabric crushing. I enjoy that. It could be silk. It could be a palm that I picked up, just like my orchid fell off. And I thought it fell off on my dining table where it decorates my thing. And I thought, I wonder if I could recreate it. I wonder if it will go brown. I wonder if it will keep its color. And I sit and I watch that. All of that is part of my creative process.
Mhm.
The creative process for me too is my garden. I love heliconias. I grow heliconias for the fun of it. And I will go out with my camera and I will take 50 million pictures from 50 million directions so I can use it as source for my work.
Mhm.
But as a pictorial source for my work or image is important, but what am I feeling when I'm in there in the garden amongst all these 12-foot high leaves? And I bring that back to my work. It's about breathing in fresh air. And does my work make you breathe? Does it make you uncomfortable? Does it make you happy? All of those things are part of my creative process.
Mhm. Mhm.
The the ideas that I love thread. I have, you can't see it behind me, I think, but I have 50 million different colors of thread and yarn, any kind of fiber. I like to collect it so I can use it in my work. I looked and I thought, for this woman, I thought, well, what if she had a little sparkle in her hair? So it's a piece of yarn with gold sparkles in it. I'm open to anything if it works and I'm happy with it. And I say, okay, I lay it out on my table and I go to sleep. I get up at 4 in the morning and I'll say, you know what? So I'm happy with you. Or maybe I'll move this here. That's how the process works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is very interesting. So you have this great sense of play and openness, and it's also very cerebral. It's also very intellectual as well. You're asking yourself a lot of questions. Is this working? Could I add this? Do I take it away? What does it need? And you also have this sort of like stepping back and kind of a little bit more like reflective. There's all this activity, and then you kind of lay it out, and it's like you just kind of let it be. It's almost like it's cooking. And it's like its time
Yes.
is yeah, its time is not complete yet, but you're gonna like check it out the next day. And it's like you're okay with that. You just kind of like roll with the process.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes I remember when I was working on this piece, I was in my studio for about 10, almost 12 hours. I stopped for breakfast, I stopped for lunch, I stopped for dinner, but I got into the piece and I totally enjoyed it. And maybe it's about immersing yourself in your work
Mhm.
so people can see it's your work, but it's part of me. That's what it is.
Mhm.
And some people can become sensitive about their work, but I am sensitive in the sense that I hope you like it, but most importantly, I want you to take something away with you. What are you getting from the work? How do you feel around the work? Can you see yourself in the work? Is there even just one little part of it that you like that you can see, oh, that made me think? That made me understand a little more about design, the concept of a circle. So her lips have two different colors. What if what's the purpose of the yellow? Is it the sun? It's the grass? Is it speech? Is it, just thought?
Mhm.
What can I get you to think about as I do my work and share it with you?
Mhm. Mhm. Let me know your thoughts on this, Gillian. That I find that abstract work really actually brings the viewer more to the piece in a way than representational work. Like for example, and I found this a fascinating and almost like a key element, perhaps in one way to understand your work. And you referenced the artwork behind you, and that she doesn't have eyes because you want the viewer to feel. You want them to go into a space that's beyond their like visual acuity. Yes, they're seeing it, but you want them to feel what's being expressed and perhaps have their own interpretation of it. But you're very embedded into the feel of things. And that kind of ties in with your whole like, heightened sense of, tactile. How does this fabric feel and this brooch and this earring and kind of moving in that whole sense of sensory perception.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, right on the mark, I think people need to be open for anything because that's the fun of life. Who wants to walk on a set path all the way? What if you did? What if is it's an awesome question. And that's what the art is about. What if?
Mm-hmm.
Because although I'm talking about the journey to the Sunday dinner table, well, to Sunday dinner, maybe somebody else comes back in and she thinks, or he thinks, oh, maybe these are angels flying. Maybe these are my ancestors, which it is, to everybody has a different perception of it, but you need to come out with something. It makes you stop and look.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the pieces were finally hung, I thought, oh my gosh, I see the work this way, vertically, but seeing it floating in the sky or on the ceiling is a totally different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about your personal perception of each person's perception.
Mm-hmm. And that was brilliant in the exhibit at the Karibu exhibit, to actually present those on the ceiling because it made it so atmospheric. Because I can tell you, Gillian, when I was actually there, my eye, of course, I was looking at everything going on, and the exhibit is amazing, but I kept looking up at those, and it was just like, you know, it gave this whole different type of feel to it. And now, hearing about your work and kind of having that placement on the ceiling and the flow and how it kind of like leads everything and kind of is cohesive and ties the exhibit together. Now it kind of like really is all like making sense, you know,
Yes,
and
thank you.
yes, absolutely.
And I think, as I said, full circle, bringing it back, it was Anthony's idea. He said, I want something like kites from the ceiling. And that was it. And I ran with it. So the idea, even the final piece, she flows slightly from the ceiling down almost onto the table, the table at the back. So it's you're journeying, you are coming down to the table. This is the meeting spot for you. And you're coming from different directions, different personalities, and you're coming to the table.
So beautifully thought out and so symbolic and so meaningful and so deep. I so appreciate you explaining all of this and sharing your art with us, Gillian, and your artistic journey and your process.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. We do need to wrap things up. We'd like to have you, Gillian, if you would please provide any closing comments that you'd like to close the show with, and if you could let us know how to stay connected with you, please.
Okay, so I'd like to say everybody needs to be able to see art, whether it's in an exhibition, it's in public art, if it's kids' art, if it's a mural, whatever. Everybody needs to see art every day. Everybody has to be able to feel it, to experience it. And I'd like to say, you don't purchase art because it's a big name that has done it. If it speaks to your heart, then it's your art. That's my thought. I think for young artists, for other artists, whether, it's not about age, it's about, young in spirit and where you are in your art. I think the most important thing is that you get up pretty much every day and you work at it. Whether it's a tiny piece, whether it's a huge piece, work at your art, be constantly inspired, keep looking, seeing, not necessarily over the shoulders of another artist, but create something just for you, something different, and make it your statement. And at the end of the day, you can stand back and say, yeah, I kind of like that. That looks pretty cool. So you can find me at, I use my last name, KennedyWrightDesigns.com. That's my website, which is forever changing. But the best way to see what I do every day, because I try and be a good girl and I post every day, you can find me at Kennedy Wright Designs on Instagram and Facebook. I am on LinkedIn as Gillian Kennedy Wright, but just Instagram and Facebook are the best places to find me because you'll see my morning post, my midday post, and my evening post. And often you can see the process of my work because you'll see me start a piece and you'll see the midday post. I not necessarily have reached there, I reached there on the same day, but I show you the process. Often you'll see me sewing. You will see me putting the fabrics together and then you'll see it finished and in a room setting. So that's where you find me, KennedyWrightDesigns.com and Kennedy Wright Designs.
Wow. And that's so awesome that you kind of you post the actual process. So we'll actually be able to follow you through from the beginning, middle to the end, and then the final product.
Yes, definitely. And it might take me a week or two or whatever to finish it, but it's there. You see it in the end as the process.
Gillian, it has been such a joy to connect with you, and I appreciate you sharing your art with us and all that you have shared with your process and your insight and what art means to you and your inspiration and the whole theme of, of Karibu, welcome, come in, and the whole Sunday, going to church, and then the Sunday meeting at the table, the dinner at the table, and the whole symbology. It's very beautiful, and I'm so grateful that you've shared this with us. Thank you for being our guest artist.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure, Leslie Sue.
Thank you, Gillian. Thank you everyone for watching today. And again, we'll be bringing you a few more artists from the Karibu exhibit, so please be on the lookout for that. Thank you again, Gillian, for being our guest artist, and much success with the Karibu exhibit and all your art endeavors. Thank you. And please stay connected with us again on our Facebook page, Art and Talk, and also on our YouTube channel. And again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you watching. I'm Leslie Sue, and I'd like to say that we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed. Thank you again, Gillian. Thank you everybody for watching.